and if you start this, then you can at least build something a bit more stable than what Rian and Stefan did in the previous session. So when it comes to Power BI, star schemas is definitely the way to go. It is, if you have a good star schema, your DAX is simpler, performances is better, and it's just faster refreshes as well. If you do not know about star schemas, there's a lot of good content out there. So just Google Guy in the Cube. What they prefer to tell is good books on star schema. Kimball as well would give you a good background on what is star schemas and fact and dimensional modeling. So what is performance killers? Avoid this. It's not a don't use this, avoid this. We don't like many-to-many relationship. Bidirectional filtering should be avoided. Don't go switch it on if you don't have a good reason for this. Inactive relationships also is a very dangerous thing to have, and avoid bridge tables. They do have their place on the world, but not every solution should have a bridge table, only specific ones. If there's a need for it, by all means use it, but avoid them. Surrogate keys. Preferably numerical surrogate keys. And then we go to long, narrow tables. You want to filter out columns as quick as possible and only bring in the amount of rows that you absolutely need. So take out that unused columns. It has dire consequences in your model size. Avoid high cardinality columns. There's a couple of tricks that you can do on this, like timestamps. If you can split out your date and time into 2 columns, it saves a lot on your compression on your Vertipack engine, so your model is nice and snug. Stuff like decimal numbers, if you don't need that digits in your report, go filter it out already on a model layer to give you an idea. On cardinality, 6 digits is 1,000,000 unique combinations, where 3 digits is only 1,001. So it helps the Vertipack engine do a lot of compression the less unique cardinality values you have. Then good practice is always push your changes as high as possible to source. So in priority, you want to do it at source, PowerQuery, and then calculated fields. And if you don't need the hierarchy for date, time tables, switch it off. It is also quite a big impact on your model. If you use it, by all means, keep it. But if you use a calendar table, get rid of that overhead. Some best practice in PowerQuery. I'm going to run through this very quickly. Use the right connectors. There are multiple connectors to multiple different data sources. So take effort, understand what connector you do need to use, and use that. I like the approach of using the one connection to rule them all. I'll demo this for you. And then your calendar table should be marked as a date table so that Power BI knows how to do its AI magic in terms of dates. Do your transformation in PowerQuery as far as possible. Make your PowerQuery environment nice by using folders. Do the meaningful names there, and then filter as quick as possible in your queries. So not only do we want to filter that out in the model as high up, but also in your queries, filter before you merge, that sort of things. I'll demo this for you by choose columns, manage errors, nulls, and split up your queries to take a modular approach. I'll show you this one as well. And then whenever it's possible, verify that query folding takes place and what you can do to do that, to enable that. And then again, rename your steps that it makes logical sense. I'll show you a quick data profiling step. Know your data. By knowing your data, you know how to design for your data. All right, so jumping into how this works, let me just get organized here. All right, so we start out blank. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create groups. So groups is just a fancy word for folders. I usually follow a pattern create your own pattern in the team on how you're going to do your groupings. It makes it just nice and pretty and functional in fault finding and maintenance if everything is grouped in a specific way. Generally, I add support tables as well, but for now, I don't have a support table need in this solution, so I don't really create that folder. So you saw me just typing very quickly, but that's in essence how you create a group, is by just simply clicking there, create new group, and type that in. So we're going to go and pick an Excel connector. This is the data that our team is passing through for us. They have not heard about SQL or any other good database before, so we are working with Excel. I'm just choosing a random sheet because it's not really necessary on what I want to show you guys how to do this next. So the one connection to rule them all, this was creating that connection. So we do not need any one of these rest of these things. So we just simply go and delete all that steps by collecting the delete till end, or just simply click on our X's. I've got a fancy name for this connector. Let me just look for it. So I like to create all of my connections in here. So if we're going to SQL or to any other data source, I create the connections here, and from there you reference this. So important to note that I don't want to load this into my report, so I just simply click the enable off, and once it's indented like this or italic, then it means that it's not actually loading into the model, which is then just like a stepping stone in your query. There's a big difference between duplicate and reference. Know what each one of those does. Reference is just, it takes the end of this query and it goes over to the next. It does not mean that it caches that. So we're going to rename this query called sales transformation, and here I want to expand this into our results set. So here we have a first glimpse of our results set, and we're going to come back to this now. What I said earlier about taking that modular approach, I like to do, in this case, I like to do all of my transformations at one place so that I don't have to go do transformation in my queries down low. All of it is managed in this one query, and the benefit of that is that it ciphers down to whatever you're going to reference next. So profiling, there are two ways of doing profiling in Power BI. I like the tools that they give us, but I like to go in deeper. So I want to show you a quick way of doing this. Is everything still okay? So I'm just going to duplicate. What duplicate does, it is just a straight up copy of the previous step. It does not references anything. It is just there. So it's copy and paste just in a duplicate form. So I'm just going to rename this so that it makes a bit more sense. So profiling, there's a very, very powerful step in Power BI. It's a function that's called table.profile. If you do it without the brackets, it can actually show you what is the output. So if you ever wondered what it is, table.profile, IntelliSense would also pick it up. And then you can look at what is the output of this. So if you're going to go for schema, let's do the type way of it, table.schema. Now, there, whenever you use IntelliSense, it brings in everything. So just remember that if it flops on you, that just remove that table in the front end. So have a good read on this. What is it, what everything returns, and what does it mean? It is really cool by looking at that. Whenever you have a new result set, know your data. So table.profile and then table schema. While it's loading, I'm just going to create the next one. Profiling is taking a bit. Schema gives you all of the information about the metadata of your data source. So you get what is the data that gets returned, what is the type, what is the number, and then also it tells you nullable as well as a good couple of metadata that comes from the source. When it's something like SQL, it's very interesting to go read all of this stuff, and it would help you design and make design decisions on what should you do in terms of your transformation. So all of these, I do not load them into my result set unless I want to build a report on them. Because these are functions, I don't have to load them. But this is purely for information's sake. So there you can see we've got already a problem, but let's go do our transformations. The off-the-shelf built-in tools, if you're not familiar with them, you can also go look at your profiling stats here. And this is only done on the first 1,000 records. Remember this thing that hides at the bottom that very few people know about. It gives you the ability to do a full result set scan. So that is very handy to get to your data issues that is other side of 1,000 records. I'm just going to switch this off for now. So here we have got our employee. We've got an error on that one, as also that you see in the profile. So what is our steps? We want to remove columns. We're not going to do it here. We'll do that in our queries later on. We want to filter out the data set. We want to bring in everything in this case, so we're not going to do any filtering. We want to handle the null values and the error values. So in this case, we consulted the business. They gave us the thumbs up that they don't know what is happening with that NA. They gave us the permission to add the transformation step of replacing errors with nulls. So we handled that error and it's gone. We have to do a bit of transformation steps on this as well. Stuff like whatever the data type is not correct in, like unit of measure. Remember we said that we want to filter out the digits as far as possible. So it is a fixed decimal price. We're only interested in 2 decimal places, so we make it a currency fixed to 2 decimals. And have you seen, we've got a new problem that arose. And this is my transformation steps done. Take more diligent steps in doing this. I'm rushing a bit through this. But as you see, we've got another error. I just want to show you on the profile that it's going to pick that up as well. So this is the good thing of doing data profiling. Do it as low down as possible so that you can see. If you've got a big result set, then don't waste your time with doing data profiling on these steps. Set up the connection and load that as a table. PowerQuery will do the entire behind the scene work for you to do that profile, and you have the benefit of reading the results. So handling that error, it is something that is NA. So in other words, we chatted to business about that. They said we need to handle that. They're not going to handle it at source. So happy to add that transformation step here. We are error free. Any questions so far?
If we have questions from the Learning Hub here, just raise your hand. You all have mics in front of you, actually. Just go for it.
So we don't want to load our transformation step.
Adriaan, question, well, actually not a question, just a comment here. I particularly like what you did, creating a connection at the start and just reusing that. It feels like it's just so much more efficient than creating a new connection for every single table that you need to bring in, and it's going to speed up your development time significantly.
Not necessarily the development time, Rian, but Now with this, let's imagine our Excel sheet has changed. So by changing the URL or whatever the location is of that Excel sheet, you do that once and all of your queries below that gets aligned. So it's more of a maintenance thing. So I generally like create that connection, reference that, and I'll show you this PowerQuery dependency task now. It is interesting how that draws it out. So again, I want to just circle back to the whole thing that I've mentioned about caching. There's a general concept that if you reference something, it gets cached. PowerQuery don't work like that. So if you go under your settings and you go look at this, just a quick side tour on this. So there you want to disable that auto-date time. So if you don't use the automatically date hierarchy that Power BI gives you, that is when you switch that off. You most definitely don't. I hate it when PowerQuery or Power BI decide my relationships for me. So I switch that off. I want to draw all of that relationships myself. And then sometimes if you've got a slow connection to your data source, you can switch that off just to help a bit out with the overheads. But this guy, this is a very interesting click to go read up on. If you switch this off, it don't allow multiple loadings or multiple queries to be simulated at the same time or kicked off to source. So if you click this, it would actually take the one query by a time and then some caching comes into play. But if not, it would literally go and throw your source with each query simultaneously. And I think it is limited to 12. So if you do a refresh, it would hit all of your queries would get thrown at the source up to a limit of 12, and all of them would be running in parallel. So there is no caching involved because each query is basically an execution on its own. If you do then this whole serialization of enable parallel loading, then it would go run them one at a time, and Power BI have probably some bit of things in the background where it can then cache some of that result sets. But as you can read there, that it would generally be slower. So it depends on your data source by data source, how this caching and multiple threading and all of that stuff is working. Visualize your refresh, very cool thing to go look out. Phil Seymour, go Google that guy. He has got a couple of interesting articles on how that stuff works. Back to dimensional stuff. So we're going to create a couple of dimensions. Again, me typing very fast. So we've got a sales territory, we've got a customer, we've got product, we've got sale order, and then we've got fact table that we call sales. Now, in our connection, in that sheet, the database has told us that they've given us a date table that they want to use. So if I again reference this and I drag it down to a dimension, remember these guys follow the transformation step, which is in here. Technically, I would then put in this calendar table under transformations and reference that as well. But currently, it is good enough. I don't need to do any transformation on that step. So I would just throw in calendar here. And then with that, we go and look for our date table, pull that in, and everything seems fine. Let's finish this off. Let me see this quickly. So this is, if you view your query dependencies, it's always interesting thing to visualize before you load, understand what you have. And now you can see what is dependent on what. So that one connection changes and all of the queries that links to that is automatically updated. So understand your drawing, what you have, and how that relates back. Okay. I'm going to try to speed this up a bit. So cell territory, what do we have here? So when it comes to cell territory, we still have the entire result set of that we have in the transformation step. So there's multiple ways of doing the same thing in PowerQuery. So personal style has got a lot to play with it, but certain ways is better. It's got pros and cons to everything. So removing a field here like remove, it only goes and removes that specific columns that you selected. I don't like this. So if I want to use a certain amount of columns, I don't go select what I don't want and delete it, because what if source adds a new column? Then automatically that column gets added to all of my queries. So get into the habit of choose columns. This is the best one to use in my opinion, because it's not going to remove what you don't want. It's going to keep what you want. So two different approaches to this. So that search functionality on a massive result set like this is very handy. So let's go look for sales territory. We want that in our territory dimension. We want this guy. We want the customer key. No, sorry, I'm on the wrong table here.
Yeah, Adriaan, we've also done the same thing in our recent project, where we also chose the columns that we want to remove. No, we chose the columns we wanted to keep rather than the ones we wanted to remove. And our argument for that was, what if the columns we wanted to remove got removed on the source? Then our queries would fail all of a sudden. So it's just another level of safety, referencing only the ones you want to keep.
All right, sorry, I just lost track here. So there's choose columns. If you work with the Excel sheet and you go in that Excel sheet and go to new columns, it would automatically add that as column 1, 2, 3, 4 onto that one as well. So working with Excel sheets in PowerQuery is also not the best thing to have. So what we are looking at here, let me just quickly see this. So I'm just looking at my notes just to see what columns do we need. So we're looking at territory. So territory key is there. We're looking for region. We are looking for country. We're looking for group. So those are the fields that we want to use in the specific dimension. So what we've done is our our horizontal filtering. What is the next step after that, which is a good benefit, is to do the vertical filtering or just remove the duplicates. By that, we are crushing this table down to a couple of rows. What's happening with you now? Sorry, I clicked on keep and not remove. Be very careful on what you select on this. So do you see that this is select distinct over the entire result set? If you click on one and you right click and say keep or remove duplicates, you see that it's only going to remove the duplicates in that one row. So be careful, rather do it over the entire result set that you know that you are sorted. Okay, and now that we've got our horizontal and our vertical filtering sorted out, now we can look at renaming this into something more appropriate. We definitely don't want to load these funny names. So yeah, keys generally we hide when we load it through to the model. So I don't really worry about putting spaces in between things like that, but we definitely want to take the camel case and split it up into multiple words. Don't shout at people with caps, keep it simple, and our dimension is done. So for the other stuff, without risk of boring you people for the rest of the night, I'm going to just run through this and have my very quick typing skills running here. So we did the same. Remove by selecting, choose columns. Then we remove the duplicates, rename the columns, and there we go. So for product, I'm going to do the same. Have a slice of pizza while you guys waiting for me here.
Andrew, while you're going, I actually have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, we've been using, at a point in our project, we used PowerQuery to do quite some intricate transformations to our data. We basically had a few flat files and we made the star schema as you're doing it right now. But we found that very quickly we ran into the problem that PowerQuery seemed bloated and fat and very, very slow. To the point where it would take almost like half an hour to do a refresh, just waiting for all of those things to process. Is that just a fact of life? Were we doing it wrong, or is there a way to avoid it?
It would be very difficult for me to say without knowing exactly what you guys did. But then also remember that stuff takes time. So building a model like this, refreshing a model like this, it's not necessarily bad for it taking an half an hour. You're taking the performance hit on loading that optimized model so that when people use the report, they have the benefit of a good designed result set. So I would say rather take the hit on slow performance on loading your model than loading a model quickly, but it sucks, and everybody that uses that model pay the price. So somewhere along the line, you're going to pay a price of building a data into this data set. Yes, there's a lot of optimization opportunities. So don't take it as it's okay for having a slow refresh, but rather take the hit on a slow refresh, but your model is optimized for end users' experience.
Okay, yeah.
You could also consider putting some of the slower stuff into the data flow so that the data flow into PowerQuery is quick.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so what we ended up doing is we moved everything to a PostgreSQL database. I let Power BI just consume the data product layer, the final layer. Yeah. We moved all of the processing out of Power BI. Yeah.
You also can do refresh only to the last portion, not to all database. And that's basically will speed it up.
That's a good point. Cool.
All right, Stefan, just do a time check for me quickly, because I can actually stop and load it, but we have not really showed anything on surrogate keys.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we pretty much booked half an hour to 45 minutes for you, but we started you first up. Sia has arrived, so yeah, we're ready to start with the news. But no, you still have about 10 to 15 minutes left.
All right, so great. So at this point, save often, save now, please, people. So if I click apply, it would apply everything, and it can crash on me, and I can lose everything. So what I generally do is, if you hit that apply, I say apply later. I don't care for applying it immediately. I just want to save before I apply. So always get also into the habit of don't go and save and apply. Save, apply later, and then you go back and save and apply. Power BI has got a very cool, yeah, we'll auto save for you. That works great when you do the report. It sucks when you do it for PowerQuery. It never got that right in all the times that my load crashed on me. So pretty much save it correctly before you load. You can thank me later. So now our model has loaded, and this is what we have. Okay, so I just quickly want to get this into a very pretty picture. So our fact table, I generally put them at the bottom. Then we've got our customer, yes, is that it? got our project, sale orders, sale territory. So let's build a.
Adriaan, can you zoom in a bit there? It's a bit small.
I'm going to zoom in now. I'm just brought everything in there.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
I zoomed out just to get everything that I've loaded, because what would also happen if you hit that, you think that the table is not loaded, and then you'll find out that it's actually there. So once a load is done, I definitely zoom out quite dramatically, without being too sarcastic about it, just to bring everything into my view plane. Right, great, now I can work with this. So we knew that we've got a couple of keys happening here. So this is where naming convention of stuff is really important. I think that is, no, it's going to crash on me. So let me just have a quick look at this. So I'm taking order date key, and I'm going to throw that on there. So we've got a nice one-to-one relationship on order date and our calendar. We look at sales order ID. Now we've got so much stuff in this. There's our territory key, so let's get that one out of the way. Sale order. So I explicitly tell Power BI that I want to do this on my own, and I don't want many-to-many, but once it's a one-to-one relationship, just confirm that that is correct, because sometimes later on it won't be, and then you can actually force this to have a many-to-one relationship without it failing on you. So make sure that you understand what you are selecting here. This is just now wrong direction, but we can fix that later. Product key, that's good, and then customer ID. Let me just see which one is that on. Customer keys on customer key. Where are you now? So customer key goes to customer ID. There we go. All right, and that is it. So good practice is you want to hide your keys. You don't want the users to see your keys. You can just simply click on that little show icon there, and then it is hidden out of your report. And that's it. Date, I want the table, so I'm just going to keep that there. There's our little star schema ready to be used. So if we have another 5 minutes, I can show you how to do surrogate keys if you don't have that. Stefan, we're still good?
Yeah, we can do 5 minutes.
Let's go try this. So let's, I'm just going to duplicate this to make life a bit easier. So I've got cell territory 2. So what happened is I said duplicate. So we just, the same exact query was just copied over. It's still referencing the same place, and it still has got all of the logic in. Let's say, for example, we have a problem where we don't have that sale key. Then we set a situation where we have to go add our own surrogate keys. This is not a problem in Power BI. So if you don't have keys, split it out into your dimension, and then you go and add an index ID. Here, one of the steps that I said we need to do is we need to change our logical steps so that it makes sense. Added index is not a really explained thing. So here we're going to say adding the ID. All right, so there we go. Now, instead of renaming this field, I'm going to click in the step that actually adds it, and I go edit it here. And I hate it being at 1 or at 0. I changed that to start at 1. And there we have got our territory ID surrogate key added to our dimension. I'm a strong believer of having my IDs first. Personal preference is not going to make a difference on the way that it works. It is just for me more maintainable if it's at the beginning. So now we have it in our dimension. The problem is we do not have that territory ID in our fact table. So jumping to our fact table, unfortunately, we have removed that specific fields. So we just want to jump back, and this is where I'm just going to jump to another screen to verify what is that keys. So we want to add again, the fields that we do not want to remove is region. So we're going to keep region in. We want to keep country in. We want to keep group in. So instead of removing those fields at the beginning, your dimension fields, you still keep them. And then they are part of your result set. So as we go along, and remove them. So did I mess this up now? Let me just, try this again. Region. I want to keep region. I want to have country. And I want to have group.
I think that's the first mistake you made while being live, and you made it like half an hour, 45 minutes without making a mistake. So that's pretty impressive.
All right, thanks for the vote of confidence there, Stefan. So, and it was my previous query that I copied over that messed me up. So, legacy issues. All right, so then we go and in here, remember what I told earlier? Part of best practice is if you join two queries, you want to filter out before you join queries. So the good thing is we followed this by going and we filtered out our result set. So we've got a filtered result set that we're going to merge with our bigger result set. Now this thing is going to mess me up a bit. Let's go and look for where is that merge. So we click on merge. Now, what do we want to merge? We want to merge our new territory 2 result set. And what we want to merge is on that dimension field. Do take note of the order. And we do want to merge them against region, country, and group. The reason why there are small letters in this case is because we've already renamed them. Typically, you want to do this before you do that rename, but we'll stick with it. Join kind, you can decide what you want to do. In this case, left join is very dangerous because you're gonna cause or left join is fine because I want to bring in null values. If I do inner join, I might filter out values that is not or that don't have that relationship. So be careful on what you select here. Inner join might filter out data that is not in your dimension and mapped in your fact table. Left join would just bring that in as null. We have an exact match here, which gives me the confidence that we are on the right track. And there we have a table. Great. What do we want to bring out of this table? I do not want a prefix. I do not want these guys. I just want the ID in there. And once I've got that expanded and it is in, then I can either, remember here it's safe now to go and delete the records because we already filtered out on other columns. So that is not a risk that I'm too worried about. I can remove that columns. So we brought in the dimension tables that we filtered out previously. We brought them in, we merged on that, adding that surrogate key, and then lastly our query before we loaded filters out that specific dimensions keys. And what do we have? We've got that relationship between our fact table and our dimension table that we created with our own surrogate key. Okay, before we load, remember this, apply later. Now we're fine with it. And then after that, we can actually close and apply.
Cool. Adriaan, unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. That is all of your time used up. I'm pretty sure the rest of the surrogate keys are just going to be copy and paste of what we just saw.
No, I'm done with this. I just wanted to show one way where we created our own surrogate keys. So it is there, and then you just simply connect that, and we are done.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool. Well, let me just head over to my actual spot. I'm going to head over to Mario over there.
Question this side. So yeah, Adriaan, firstly, well done. Excellent presentation. Doing it live. That was exceptional, and only making one mistake. And yeah, I've certainly learned a lot. There was just one question. It's around, so you use a connection at the start. We actually ran into the issue where we had to change exactly that, our database that we were connecting to. And then we ended up using parameters. Then, you know, that also allows us to change in the Power BI service. Would you consider that?
Yeah, so that one connection, there's many ways around or how you can do that. So I just showed one where you don't really have to worry about parameters. So that one connection to rule them all method, you can do exactly that using parameters as well. So then it's only one connection that it picks up using parameters.
Okay,
You can
cool.
do exactly that same reference, creating it via parameters, connecting reference, and so forth.
I see. Great.
Cool. Are there any other questions from our members here in the Learning Hub, and then also from the guys who are remote? Just give you guys a second. Maybe someone needs to rush for the mute button. Cool. All good. Great. Yeah. That was a really good session, Adriaan. I learned a lot. I think, I guess the answer to my question earlier is that we were doing something wrong, because yours looked like it wasn't an absolute nightmare. Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, then I just want to hand over to Sia. I don't know if you've got the slides ready yet. Oh, there they are. Brilliant. Cool. Sia, take it away.
Thank you.
Okay. You click to unmute.
Oh, brilliant. Can the people on the call hear me all right? Just check the.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. So today, just before I start that, greetings to everyone who's on premise today with us at the Intellect offices, and to those who are joining us remotely online. Thank you for making this day possible. It's always nice to actually be in a room where we can share expertise in the space that we're in. It always helps to see how people are doing things, and if we are working to the best of our abilities in terms of the knowledge sharing that we're giving, and obviously improving the models that we build for our customers and for ourselves. So thank you for being here today for this presentation. By way of introduction, my name is Sia Zungu. I come from a company called Sador. Currently, I'm the BI team lead at the company, and I'll be doing the news segment today for today's Power BI user group. Okay, so I'm just going to try the clicker. All right, cool. So just to give you the agenda for the news today, I've got the introduction. Again, I've actually done the introduction. That's just me introducing myself and the segment that I'll be presenting on today. And then I've got two key sections. Although it appears as three, I've only got news and updates. And then the other section is the useful links that I'll be sharing with you if you need to actually look at the resources that I used for the news and updates for today. Okay. So, oops, I think that went fast. Okay, so yeah, that's just my picture there. That's my name, and then the company that I work for. And then there's just my email address for those of you who might want to get into in contact with me regarding the news that we might be covering today, or anything actually within the BI space. So I'm happy for that communication. All right, starting with the news, we are actually looking at the first segment of the news, which is the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which was released in March of 2022. So as you know, the Gartner Magic Quadrant looks at players within the analytics and BI space, amongst other things. And out of the players within the analytics and BI space, they rank them within the scorecard here, where they showcase within the matrix where they fall. So they could either be the challengers, They could be niche players, visionaries, or the leaders, which is far top right corner, if it appears, yeah, top right-hand corner on the screen. And you'll see there that there's that one dot at the top there, which says Microsoft, which shows that they are actually ahead of the pack within the leader quadrant. And this actually is the 15th consecutive year that Microsoft has taken the position as leader within the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which is actually phenomenal. And they've been 4 years consecutively running as also the leaders within the visionary space. As you see, they're more far right than any other dots in the visionary quadrant. So they're actually far to the top, which is leader, and far to the right, which is visionary. So they're sitting as a leader in both those spaces, which is phenomenal to do. And again, that is something that came as a result of giving a strong offering with the Power BI desktop application. They've been rolling frequent monthly updates, which are actually appreciated by the community because they do it far more than any other provider that I've heard of in terms of the frequency of updates and just the amount of updates that you get every month. It's quite a lot to keep up with, to be quite honest. So that actually boosted them ahead. And one of the other things that was taken into account was the integratedness with the Office 365 applications, where you've now got the Teams connection with Power BI, where reports are coming into your Teams channels, and also the smart visuals that have been rolled up with some of the artificial intelligence built in. So it's making it easier now for end users to actually build their own reports without needing someone who's an expert. Of course, in most cases, experts are still used because we need to understand the bigger business to build a solution that is fit for purpose for most people. But this also now allows Microsoft to give people that have previously not been as technical to build something that they can use on a day-to-day basis. So that's quite cool. And yeah,
the integration to all the Power family.
Exactly. It's actually in conjunction with the Power Platform family, which is your Power Apps, your Power Automate, all of that coming together to give you an end-to-end solution, pretty much where, you know, within Outlook, you can have a Power BI tab there that gives you your report directly into Outlook. And they're actually integrating more and more with the changes that they're rolling. So that definitely puts them ahead of the pack when you compare how many other competitors are offering the same kind of solution end to end. So definitely that works in their favor. Okay, and then there's an article that I read from Forbes, which looks at the 4 emerging business intelligence trends. So they just basically forecasting for 2022 that these are going to be one of the top things that are going to be in customers' minds when it comes to BI and what they want to get out of their solutions. So just going through the list from the top, and yeah, some of these headings I'm just going to give a little bit of context to. So the first item there is not just what, but why. So they're saying here, previously, you know, it was enough for BI to always explain, let's look at your history, let's look at previous quarters, these are your numbers, this is what you did last year, you know, and that's all you did. You always looked at what happened in the past, but now businesses are moving to, you know, why did that happen? Because we want to change either the way the business is working, or we want to actually measure something that's going to give us the output that we can then manage and actually forecast on to say, this is what we want to track going forward. So it's important now to give business not only the historical of what happened, but also the predictive element of it to say what can happen going forward and what needs to change to actually shape that into the way that they want to get the intelligence to the broader team. And then the second point there is about individualized, curated insights. So BI in past years has come under fire for offering this one-size-fits-all solution where, you know, some users have more tailored needs than others, but you find not all platforms obviously can offer everything to everyone. So in some cases, you have to be a niche player and say, I'm only going to offer my solution to people that are more technical, or I'm only going to build a solution which is low code for people that are not as technical, which is also a good offering. But you have to have a balance in nowadays BI to give those that are technical enough room to actually design and develop the reports that they want, but also not straying away from those that are not as technical so that they can still catch on and do a few things with the BI platform. So that is becoming more important, to have reports that are customizable, as opposed to having the traditional BI way of you going to an IT personnel to build a report, which is going to be complicated, which you might not be able to even maintain going forward. So you have to strike a balance on that. And then the next point talks about increased accessibility and empowerment. This is a big point when it comes to sharing of your reports, for instance, especially with BI solutions and people working from home. Not everyone is now working from an office 9 to 5. So some people are on the go, and it needs to be ubiquitous, like mobile phones, where if I'm on my phone, I can get my report.
That's me.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so that they can get their reports while on the move, and that's something that's becoming more and more required by BI, especially with smart technology coming out. You know, people using smartwatches and all of that. It's going to become interesting to see what happens in the space with new technology coming out and how BI plays a role in that going forward. And then the last point there talks about mobile BI brings ubiquity, which actually feeds into the point that I was talking about, where it's now becoming more important for your BI solution to reach all of your customers or all of your stakeholders who use your BI solution, no matter what the platform. So if I'm on my phone, if I'm on my laptop, if I'm on my computer at the office, I still need to get a report that gives value to what I do. So it becomes more important to actually start to use those technologies to your advantage. So these are the four, out of actually it's a long list, but these are the four main trends that Forbes is actually foreseeing as 2022 is going to be reliant on these four main pillars being pushed forward. Okay, and then another piece that I got, this was actually from late last year, I think November, December. It was a keynote from AWS reInvent keynote event. What they were talking about is basically a slew of features that's going to be coming to their cloud platform. Quite a lot of things. They talk about machine learning, AI, but I just selected a few that I thought would be relevant for this forum. One of which is that they were talking about improvements to their new Graviton 3 chip, which improves from the Graviton 2, sorry, which is the outgoing chip. And again, they're talking about, I think about 60% performance when it comes to cloud performance, and about 40% energy efficiency when it comes to utilization, which is, I guess, good for people that are owning servers and stuff like that run on AWS. They cover things like the Aws Mainframe Modernization. This is mainly targeted at banking, the banking sector, which is still using mainframes to support some of the bigger legacy systems. And this is kind of like having a mainframe on the cloud where you can plug and play different services that AWS offers to actually still get BI value out of that, which I think is quite cool. And then they talked about row and cell level security for lake formation. Now, this talks about something that it's similar to what Power BI does with the row level security, where based on certain people's access to data in the company. So for instance, if I'm working, say, in the sales division, I'm not supposed to see HR data in terms of how much people are earning in my department. So based on how the data lake gets formed, those security rules are still applied based on who's actually creating the data lake and what access to information they have. And then the last point there talks about serverless and on-demand analytics. So you could think about this as analytics as a service, where they're saying you don't need to have the servers, you don't need to maintain any of the technology. AWS will run that for you. You just build the reports that you want on top of that, and you pay per use, meaning if I'm not using the reports or I'm not looking at the reports, I'm not paying for the time. But if someone opens up that report in my company or in my team or in my organization, then I start paying. So it's like a pay-per-use type of subscription. So I'd like to know more about that as it develops, just to see, you know, does it work out better than traditional methods of BI, or is it, you know, depending on size and scalability, does it offer, you know, advantages to actually going this way? I'm seeing a lot of moves to people offering analytics as a service, and I'm not quite sure yet because I haven't seen enough examples to know where it's going, but I'm actually interested in seeing where that space goes. All right. And then coming to the updates section. So the update section of the news talks about some of the updates that came out of, in this case, Power BI. I looked at the February and the March updates, but I didn't take all, obviously they roll out a lot more updates than what is on the screen, but I just took out one key update from each month that I thought stood out for me just to share in the news section. One of which comes from the February update, which was the mobile formatting options that came out. I thought this was cool because previously, if you have a version of Power BI that's before the February update and you try to develop a mobile view, I'm not sure how many of you tried that, but I did not like the interface. They've tried to change it so many times to try and make it as user-friendly as possible, but they still lacked the design element that you get from the desktop view. But in the February release, they've now given the visualizations option so that you can actually update a visualization the way you want it to show up in a mobile view. And the nice thing about this is whatever you make in terms of changes on the mobile view, those can stay just on the mobile view while the desktop view has its own unique look, which is something you could never do before the change was rolled out. So I thought that was a good touch. And one of the other things they've also added, they were indicators to show you which options you've edited on the mobile view, which will not get rolled up into the desktop view. What this tells you as well is because the mobile view inherits its look and feel from the desktop view, once you've made a change in the mobile view, that inheritance is broken, meaning you only keep changes now in the mobile space, and the inheritance will not roll down for that particular item that was changed. So that's just something to look out for when you're making changes in the new mobile design. But other than that, I think they've done a lot of good things here, and I'm also looking forward to them improving the space as they go, because mobile design, again, as we've covered in the news section, is going to become key. As people are working remotely, we want to get access to the information in our mobiles as well, as opposed to having to sit down and open a laptop. All right. And then one of the key updates that came in March was the Azure Map updates. So the Azure Map updates, previously, you had to have, for instance, when you wanted to plot data in the Azure Map, you had to have latitude and longitude coordinates to actually use the Azure Map, whereas the standard Power BI map could use also things like cities or address, and you could sort of tag those as place or country, and it will plot it in the map. So they brought that change now to the Azure Maps as well, which I think is cool, because the Azure Maps has a lot of flexibility compared to its younger brother, which comes with the Power BI default visualizations. What they've done now is they've added the ability for the geocoding, where if you've got just an address that does not have longitude, latitude, you can actually still plot it in a map, and it will show up, it will pick it up and actually show it in the Azure Visual Maps. And then they've done sort of like an option to allow you to segment the data that you're plotting so that you can see it as a pie chart as well. I do think it's a good idea. I just think you need to be careful, especially if you've got a lot of data points to plot. We had a demo of this yesterday in our team, where one of our team members actually demoed this, but there was so many data points that it ended up becoming too busy. And that's something that you need to be careful of. And I think that's in general something you need to be careful of when you're using map visuals. But it does give data, you can segment it to see, based on certain categories, how much of your data is attributed to one category compared to the rest of the pool. So I think it's a good update, but just be careful where you use it. And then on the updates, one of the last things that I'd like to cover there is the addition of gateway security roles. So for those of you that use the on-premise gateway, the Microsoft on-premise gateway, you'd remember that previously you'd used to have the connection roles, which is your admin and user. That's all you had. But now they're actually introducing security roles, which are your admin, connection creator, and connection creator with sharing. So this now allows granular flexibility of when you're giving someone access to the gateway, what access are you giving them? Is it enough for them to share reports that use the same gateway connection, or can they just connect to the reports that use that particular gateway creation and you don't allow them to share because there's sensitive data there that you might not want going out? So that's just something to consider there, but I'm happy that they're actually going this route where it allows more flexibility, as opposed to you had two extremities, you're either an admin or you're a user, and there was nothing in between. So now they've tried to correct that with some of the additional security roles. And then finally, this is the last segment that I was talking about. There isn't really much to talk about, but it's just a slide with the links for each of the resources that I've spoken about in the news update. So if you do want to visit that for yourself, they do cover this in a lot of detail. So yeah, you can just go through those links and actually have a look at what you can find there. And with that, that brings us to the end of our presentation. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to come to the front now.
I just want to say that gateway roles was for me probably the biggest update. We struggle with that so much working in a big organization, like in some banks.
100%. And the nice thing also about that gateway roles segmentation that they've done now is that previously, when you could only give people either admin or user and you gave them admin, it's almost like giving them access to everything in terms of gateway, which we've suffered for in the past. So it does help when they do it this way. Yeah. You can just say you're just a gateway connector, and that's what you do. You don't share gateway connections, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that's excellent.
No, thank you so much for that, Sia. Really comprehensive news flash there. Really enjoyed it. It's a breath of fresh air. I think Justin was doing it for the last 5 years or something like that, forever. So it's awesome to see someone new tackling this. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing reports on my watch. That's going to be cool. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to hand over to Sven. As you guys see, our pizzas have arrived. So please ask you, Sven, be quick. I'm hungry. It's called the BI Flash after all. But yeah, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I'm doing the BI Flash, but I'm also talking about the prize. So I may as well get the prize done quickly. Slightly challenging given that we've got some people in the audience here and some people online. But this time around, before I do the prize, there's one other thing I want to mention. It is something that Microsoft offered the other day. Well, it expires in June, and only certain people are eligible, which is why I want to just announce it and see if anyone wants to put their hand up. It's they're waiving the exam certification fee for anyone who's deserving of that waiver or the discount. So if you're keen, effectively let me know. But they're saying, please don't be from a big corporate, because big corporates can afford that. And if it is that you're new to Power BI and you want to do the certificate, the exam, then put your hand up, let me know, either remotely or in the audience, and then I can basically motivate for the free certification exam fee, but it expires in June. They only let me know the other day, so it's I've had it for a while, but anyway. So
The new one,
yes, they have changed it recently. I can only assume it would be the new one. It's just you don't have to pay it, but please don't volunteer. Please don't put your hand up if it is that you're from a big corporate. That's the only request. And the reason why I did that first is if you want to do the certification, then I'm happy to award the prize to you, which is the Enterprise DNA thing, which allows you to get the video content that will help you pass your exam. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we've got a volunteer, well, someone who's requesting it here in the in-person audience. The Enterprise DNA is limited to one, but the Microsoft one is unlimited. So if anyone online would like to request that, they're welcome to. In fact, yeah, all right, but I'll get your details afterwards. Okay. All right, so that covers.
We'll monitor okay. Online. Thanks.
Wonderful. All right, that covers the Enterprise DNA and that Microsoft thing. All right, so I'm left with the final presentation for this evening. It is a BI Flash, normally 5 minutes. This one, I'm sorry, dude. I can only do it in 10. I cannot do it in 2. I'm sorry. Okay, but it is Excel and Power BI better together. We're not going to write DAX queries because that will take a long time. Okay, but we're going to talk about trying to get data. Petra. Okay, all right. So I did jot your name down, Petra, early on for the guest list, but I see you're interested in that as well. We'll be in touch. All right, excellent. So in this case, we're talking about getting data from Power BI into Excel. Okay, so we're going to talk about why first and then how. All right. So why? Well, lots of people have Excel. We all know that. Okay, but I think if it is that you've got to do a once-off export from a system, well, then just push the system export button and do it in Excel. Just do it once off. Okay, we're not talking about that scenario. The scenario we're talking about is regularly you need to get Excel. You need to get data out of Power BI into Excel. All right. Why would that be the case? Well, sometimes to do a report is better in Excel. You just don't want to have to export the data to Excel all the time, so you want it automatic. Okay. I mean, Excel does have more functionality in terms of cell-by-cell formatting, formulas, sum ifs, VLOOKUPs, much easier. You know, A1 minus B2, you know, that's much easier in Excel. But you want the data there automatically. Okay. So that's one of the main reasons. Another main reason would be you want to, you've got a pivot table in Excel, and it's pointing to the Power BI service. And if it's got lots of rows and columns, it's going to be very slow every time you want to use that pivot table. So then rather bring the data into Excel and run the pivot table off that. It'll be much faster. And we'll talk about aggregated data into Excel as well, because that would make more sense. Another example, you're a part of a big group and they want group reporting. And so they've said to you, there's a particular template that you've got to fill in and submit this once a month. So you export out of your system and you put it in there and you do all your formulas. Well, in this case, now you can do it directly. Okay, so it's just a way of sharing information. Now it's in Excel, it's easier. Okay, so that's the why part. Now it's how. Okay, fine. So this is a bit of a busy slide. Take a screenshot of this. This is basically sort of the how-to guide. I'm going to go through all of this now anyway in terms of the steps. Okay, but the first thing is you've got a link to the Power BI service. We will do that together. Okay, there are a couple of ways to link to the service. I'll do 3. Okay, then you create. let me not get ahead. Okay, fine. So let me Alt Tab. All right. So the first thing I need to do, and sorry, I earlier on when that funny audio thing was going crazy, that was because my internet dropped. So now I'm on 3G at the moment, and I'm hoping it's all going to be fine. Okay. So let me just, I was logged in. All right. So I'm just logging into the service quickly so that I can do that Analyze in Excel button. Okay. So you can just see the one way of connecting Excel to Power BI. All right. Okay. So in this case, where's my demo? Yeah, there's lots here. Okay. Actually, I can probably even search it. But okay. Anyway, so somewhere here, and I could search the thing. I want data sets, and I want the demo somewhere. Oh, I had it all organized beforehand. Sorry, guys. But there it is. There it is. There it is. Okay. All right. So Analyze in Excel there. Okay. Now, roughly 18 months ago, they made it much easier because now that ODC connection automatically gets pulled into the file, and the file is given a fancy name. Oh, my mouse. The file is given a fancy name, and as I said, the connection is in there already. So it's much, much easier to do this. The first time you ever do that, it will ask you to download a little bit of software. It's a once-off thing, okay? But already, just with one click, now I've got, let me just try and do it on my screen. I've now got a pivot table that is connected to the Power BI service, okay? So if I expand on model, it's going to think just a little bit, and it's going to give me all my dimensions and, well, at the top, and all the bits and pieces. Okay, all right, so I've connected a pivot table to the Power BI service. I'm just going to pause on this one because I want to just talk quickly about the other connection methods, then I'll come back here. Okay, so that's the first connection method, Analyze in Excel. The second method is if you have an ODC connection, which either you'll know what that is or it sounds confusing, but basically someone else can give you an ODC connection to a data source. So you go to existing connections, you say browse for more, and you'll have one or more, and I've got quite a few of them there, and you could connect to it, and then it has all the properties of the connection, the data source, the username, the password, and the bits and pieces, okay? And then the third one I think is pretty cool. It depends on which version of Excel you're running. It's roughly a year old. You can go, I'm just going to go to another sheet just to keep it simple. Insert, pivot table, and it used to be one or two options, but now there's a new one. I think it's really cool. Pivot table from Power BI. Now it does need to know who I am. So up here I've authenticated. Then it looks to see which data sets I personally have access to. It's just going to think a little bit, and I could go and click on that data set, and effectively then I've got a pivot table to that data set. So that's three different ways of connecting Excel to Power BI. All right. All right. So now we move to the next step. So just close that. So now we've passed step one. Now we need to create a pivot table in Excel. Now the reason why we're doing this, it's the backdoor method. This is the backdoor method. I don't know why, but around about 2 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, Excel no longer allowed you to write a DAX query in Excel to connect to a data model. So now you can only trigger it, and I've Googled this. Maybe there's a new way, next week or whatever, but you have to go this backdoor route, which is why I'm showing it to everyone. So the backdoor trick is step 2 and 3. Okay, create the pivot table and then do a drill through. So this is what I mean. Let's close that. We don't need it. Okay, and now I do need that. Okay, fine. So here I am with my pivot table. So I'm just going to drag anything in here. I just need one measure. Okay, and I'm just going to use sales and collections. Okay, stock. I just need one measure in there. I'm just trying to think if it even has a budget in there. But anyway, let's see. I just need one number. Okay, well, that's not going to work. I need, TB total, balance sheet, way too complicated stuff here. Why did I have all of those things? Refresh date. Okay, that was the easy one. Last refreshed. Okay. And that's a column. Okay, of course, now I'm doing a live demo, so it's not going to work for me. Okay, number of active customers. That's going to give me something. Okay, fine. I just need something in the pivot table. Okay, and then this is the backdoor approach. You double click on the thing. Excel will now do a drill through to give you the top 1,000 of this thing. Now, this is completely meaningless. We don't care about it. It's just to establish the backdoor method. Okay, that's all it's there for. Okay, it's the only purpose. So now, if I right-click on here, table, it used to be allowed edit DAX. You cannot do it anymore. Okay, so the only way is edit query, and it's gone and put a whole lot of stuff in there. Okay, but that's to create the top 1,000 drill through, which we don't care about. So in this case, all we need to do is write evaluate. Okay, now evaluate is the effect. It's the same in SQL as select star from. Okay, so that's effectively what evaluate is. And I could swear that in the olden days, you didn't need to write evaluate. You could just put the table name inside a single quotes. But anyway, in this case, when I practiced the other day, it did not like it without evaluate. Okay, but all I did is I just wrote in that little block, evaluate, single quotes, and then the table name. Okay, and now I've got the table name. So that drill through top 1,000 was just a method to get to the backdoor. Now I've got it. So now I've got the table directly from Power BI. So when I hit refresh, it'll bring the new data in. Now this is just a straight table, a calendar table, not very exciting, but you could bring your sales table in. You could do all that sort of stuff. Okay, but now if you get a bit cleverer at writing DAX queries, you can actually write a query that brings in just this column from this table and this column from another table and summarize the data. So instead of having 10 million transactions, you could have one row for each month. Now you'd have to know how to write DAX queries for that. So I mean, if you wanted to, and I'll show you an example. So I've got Power BI open. So that's my second trick. Let me just go into external tools. If you are going to write your DAX query, okay, I suggest you have your Power BI model open, Power BI desktop, then get your external tool DAX Studio open, okay, because then you've got IntelliSense, okay, and you can write the query far easier that way. I'll just give you one example of a query that I've written before to give you a sense of it. Okay, so there's an example. It's got the evaluate. I've got a filter because I want only dates beyond this certain thing here. So that's effectively a where clause in SQL. I'm bringing in tables from a dimension here. I'm bringing in something from a fact table. I'm bringing some more stuff from dimensions. I'm bringing in from another dimension table, and then a few other things. So the point is you can bring columns from different tables into this story and run this script, and you've got it now, okay? So now you're not bringing just one table, you're bringing a subset or multiple pieces of it. Now, if this is overwhelming, don't worry, there's definitely another trick, and after that, I will end. Okay, so I'm just going to close that because we don't need it. So this little trick is if you don't want to have to write the fancy DAX query, you can create a visual in Power BI and run the performance analyzer and get the query from there. Okay, so if we want sales amount by, let's just think, card name by customer name, business partner customer, demo customer, okay. And it's a graph right now, but whether it's a graph or a table is not a big deal. There is an important point. If it is a matrix, it's going to put a subtotal. In fact, let me just do a little bit more so it's a bit more exciting. Hierarchy, let's put that there. Okay. Now, it's going to go and put, can you see it's gone and summarized it? It's got subtotals, it's got totals. If I export this query, it's got too much information. It's not going to work nicely in Excel because of the subtotals. So I did that on purpose to show you that actually the way to do it is to turn it off. You don't want row subtotals. You don't want column subtotals. Really what you want is you just actually want the table. Let's just say that that's what you wanted in Excel. Now that I've got it in Power BI, my final thing to show you is view, performance analyzer. I start the thing, okay. I do need to theoretically interact with it in some way, which, okay, let's stop that. Let's go and put a filter on so that I can do that. Here. Okay, you can't really see that. I'm trying to move that out the way. Okay, all I need to do is start the thing. I'm going to interact with it there. Okay, so in this case, it's bad for my visualization because I've just limited it to 1 year. But all I needed to do now, I just wanted to show you for the matrix, if come on, copy the query, okay? And now, Notepad++, but I could just paste it for you, and then now you've got the query. In fact, I need to show you, otherwise you won't believe me. And if I go here, I'm almost done. I'm just feeling you guys are hungry.
Take your time, Sven. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so that's now I'm not a black belt at DAX queries, but I'm reasonably good at it. And I would never write a query like that. But that's how Power BI does it. So don't stress about it. That's how they do it. Okay. All this, I use variables, but this define and the var and the DSO, whatever it does, it freaks me out. But you know what? Who cares? Okay. You don't need to worry about it. Although I obviously didn't do something right. Oh, that's because I had a hierarchy in my matrix. So that roll up add is subtotal. That's what I was trying to tell you. You don't want. So turn all your totals off, your subtotals off. Then it's just a neat and tidy thing. In fact, while we're eating pizza, I can show you the nicer way, because it's not nice to have it in there, okay? Because that is actually going to not work in Excel, okay? But basically, once you've got it here, okay, without the roll up, I'm going to push through, because otherwise I don't give you the right thing. So I'm going to turn that, instead of a matrix, I'm going to turn it into a table. I think that's going to be far better. Oh, you see, there is a total down there. Let me turn that off. Totals off. Okay, and now I'm going to just put on that one. Let's click on a year. Okay, right. Oh, I didn't even start that thing. Okay, start. Oh, that's nice. Then I can actually get it to run with all the years. Table, copy query. That's actually what I want. Control A, delete, Control V. Okay, that's better. I don't have any roll-ups. Anything looking fine. So technically, Control A, Control copy, and I am doing this across two different models. The one is in the service. There's a chance that it's not going to execute, but I just want to show you now that I've got the code. Okay, table, edit query, and instead of having to try and type it in here without IntelliSense, which is going to be a nightmare, I could just hit it like this, and there's at least a 50% chance that it won't recognize some of the terms because it's a different model, but it's a similar model. Okay, well, there we go.
Wow. Congratulations.
Okay. All right. So in this case, everything that we saw in Power BI there, that table, which you can construct that you wanted, now you've got it in Excel. And anytime Power BI updates, you just hit refresh and it's there in that customized layout. It is a thing of beauty.
Nice.
Yes. Okay. There it is. Pizza time.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for that, Sven.
Yeah. I think everything that I needed to say is on that slide, and I've covered it all, including the watch out for the roll-up is subtotal nonsense. So that's all there. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think that's everything we had on the agenda, unless I'm missing anything. Oh, I would like to ask, actually, we're continuing with a series of brick by brick. So this was gathering the gathering of the data, putting it into Power BI, getting the model nice and sorted. We have a star schema now. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass this on to the next developer. I can't remember if we actually have a volunteer for the next presentation yet. We've got Tsecho.
Yes, and I'm going to call you, Tsecho, if you can hear me. She's on the call.
Oh.
I will be in
Tsecho.
touch with you soon to help you with that.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, no, thanks, Sven. Sure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So the next episode is called The Wish, and that is where we'll be gathering the requirements from the end users, if I'm not mistaken.
That's not her.
Is that not her?
Presumably data modeling one.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, there's an episode upcoming, and we'll send out notifications on the meetup when we have the list. When I have the list in front of me, I'll make sure that I say the right things before I just come up here and say nonsense. But yeah, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much, Adriaan. Thank you very much, Sia. Thank you very much, Sven. We appreciate everything. And then again, also thank you to Sador for giving us your time and skills. I see Rian has a question. I'll go to you right now. And then also thank you for Intellect, just allowing us to use the venue and the parking, and also organizing the pizzas for us. Rian, back to you.
Oh yeah, just a quick question. I saw there were a couple of people interested in the exam waiver. Did we get the details?
Yeah, so you guys who mentioned that you'd be interested, Sven, I think you can take the lead. We mentioned in the chat that they can just stay on the call.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Then I'll just jot down the names
Yeah.
as soon as that's done.
Okay, cool. So Sven, you're going to stay on the call and just chat to the guys who want to. Yeah, both of those laptops are still on the call, and then you can handle that. So the guys who are remote, you're going to miss out because everyone who's here can have a pizza and a beer or a cool drink, however you're inclined. Share some emojis, share some skills. There's the pizza. Oh, there's the pizza. Yeah, we got one pizza for everyone here, pretty much. Yes, next time come here. It's where the party's at. Cool. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Nice work. Well done.